Welcome back to the tour. This is Kit here, and we are going to be going through the Rak'tika Greatwoods. And as you can see, I no longer have my little chubby dodo friend. Instead, here I got the Great Serpent of Rak'tika, which is actually one of the big things for a side quest through Rak'tika Greatwoods itself. And I'll be mentioning that throughout the tour, but since we got a good view of this little wormy guy, gonna hop on our mount and then we're gonna get going. The Rak'tika Greatwoods, kind of think of it as the 12's Wood and Black Shroud, but the trees are on steroids. Because when they say Greatwoods, they mean Great Woods. These are giant trees mixed with just horrific swamplands. This was not meant to be a place that most people were supposed to live in peacefully, but we do still have this one pathway from the entrance that is kind of padded down from use, and that would lead us directly to the original settlement here of Fort Gone, which was destroyed during the flood. There was supposed to be some reformation and rebuilding here, but it just hasn't happened in all honesty. And the true settlement for the opening area is actually going to be to the northeast of where we are. But from right here, if you go to the top of this tower here in the area, you can actually get a pretty decent look of this immediate section. Because of the tree's height, you won't be able to get a lot of high aerial shots. And because you have left the base fort, there isn't much in terms of pathage. It's mostly just this beaten down path like we have here. But it does lead you to the settlement that is the largest of the Knights Plessed, which is Slitherbow. Which is also where Y'shtola was working as mostly doing research and getting information about the history of Rak'tika and Rak'tika itself, the kingdom that used to live in Rak'tika. And it has a pretty decent layout. Let me pull up the map here so you can see what it looks like. It's pretty well secluded. It has good defenses, and Slitherbow is, I want to say it's like Amarang and Calusia, where it's split in half. But as opposed to Amarang and Calusia, where you have to come back to continue with it, it's all done in one fluid swamp, sweep. You start on one half of the Great Woods, and then you essentially work your way over to the other half. So, real quick, I'm going to show you the half that you start off in, which is the Slitherbow side. And there really, I would like to say that there's a lot here, but there really isn't. There is a settlement up here of opposed cultists, essentially, who side with you more, try to stop you, get in your way, try to kill your friends, things like that. Standard procedure. And because we are in swamp and woodlands, a lot of the similar types of monsters that you would see in the Black Shroud do make an appearance here. We have a lot of the scorpions, we have boars, we have some dodos every now and then. And then another one that is honestly one I didn't fully expect to see here is the existence of the Jinn, which is a spawn that started showing up in Stormblood in Raggar's Reach, which are more just wind spirits. We also have the return of cave bats, more vultures, and mostly various types of mobs along those lines that you would find in the Black Shroud, mostly with different names, maybe some different coloring. Here we have Woven Oath, which is the home of the, let's say, rival cult gang, the Children of the Everlasting Dark, which, as you can tell from the fact that they want to attack us, they're not our friends. Just fly away from them real quick. And the whole premise between Slitherbow's religion and the Everlasting Dark is quite simply the fact that because of the unlimitless light that never seems to go out in the sky for the past 100 years, the concept of night sky and the dark is revered as a sacred place where you're free from suffering and you're able to just rest in eternal darkness. And following on this, because the residents of Slitherbow, as well as the dark, do revere the night, but wherein the difference is, the Everlasting Dark believe themselves to be the true, followers of the night's will, whereas Slitherbow are more inclusive, I would say. Like, they're more open to the concept that other people can be embraced by the night's love. So then that's really all there is in terms of the Slitherbow side. Like, there's more to the swamp. You can actually go under the water in certain areas. Actually, let me see if I can remember how to get out of here. Because that is the one problem with Slitherbow, is unless you remember distinctly which tunnel you came through, because they also live in, digouts in the surrounding hollow, it's going to be difficult to remember which one you go in to get out of, unless you just want to fly over the entire settlement. But here we have the lake that makes up a majority of swamplands. We just dive bomb into here. And immediately off the bat, it doesn't look too amazing. It just kind of looks like the bottom of, a lake. And if you fly around here's one. You will find ancient ruins that are remnants from the nation of Rak'tika, which believed in wisdom above all else, really. And for obvious reasons, they harbored love of the owl, because it is the go-to symbol of wisdom, in all honesty. But we fly out of the water, get out of the swamp, dry off our chocobo as we fly back, and then we are going to cut through Slitherbow to take this little pathway here instead of just flying over the settlement itself. That way you can see what the actual settlement looks like when you first kind of make your way through. So we get back in here. And then we're going to be taking this upper tunnel here. And right off the bat, you can already see some of the remnants of, the paintings and hieroglyphs that was used in Rak'tika as, a connecting feature. And then once you get through, it opens right back up, and then almost immediately you are greeted with water, followed by these beautiful blue flowers that just kind of trail the entire way from Slitherbow through the blind forest of XIV. And we still have this, similar forest spawns that you would have for the Black Shroud, except we also introduce wyverns. Then you still have your regular sentient plants. Those are given for any forest biome. And the flowers themselves actually act like a pathway of sorts. Whereas you follow the one, and it will lead you to the Vera or Vis in the first settlement of Fanau. And Fanau is one of the other two areas in Rak'tika that has an aetheryte shard. So when you teleport to Rak'tika, you're either going to Slitherbow or you're coming here. And as you can see the difference where Slitherbow kind of hid itself in a hole, Fanau kind of builds itself out and about and up above trees, where it's kind of like an aerial topography here. They build themselves into the trees, they take advantage of the height, and they use it to their advantage. And when you're in Fanau, you can go two different ways, which still shows the pathways by the blue flowers, which is still a beautiful way to show pathways in this region. We have our little monkeys that still throw stuff at me. And if you follow this pathway down, there's two things down here. The first most commonly known one is the entrance to the Quinata Revel, which is the big dungeon for Rak'tika Greatwoods. You would go down this way and you would go there, and then you would basically fight your way through that. Another thing that is up here is instead of taking like the main pathway, you take this little tree branch here, and it'll lead you to the Hopple Stopple, which, like I said in previous tour videos, I haven't gotten as far in my crafting and gathering classes, so it's not currently visible. But there is a beast tribe here that focuses specifically on gathering quests, as opposed to where you had like the Moogle and the dwarves that focus on crafting, and would sometimes integrate gathering in with it. This one focuses solely on the gathering aspect of it. And they are essentially just trying to rebuild their tribe that used to live here. And that would be over on this side in the Oxdalen Gap. And you can definitely see that a good chunk of the pathways that you walk here are integrated and used by the root system and the branches from the trees. So we come back to Fanau. I'm just going to fly through at this level, make life a little bit easier. And over here is where we had started. But if you end up going north of the Aetheryte, because the Aetheryte will sit in the middle of these areas, that does make it convenient. But you take this pathway here, and then this connects you to an actual solid piece of land, as opposed to the previous pathway where it's mostly just roots for the Cumulatropolis, which takes you to the majority of the ruins of Ranka. And the enemies show this too because they themselves are simply just sentient pieces and golems from the Kingdom of Ranka. And it you can definitely tell where their architectural style was going with Ranka, considering the statues and the way that the buildings were set up. But you can actually fly into one of the Great Pyramids, which is part of the MSQ is actually going through and learning what you can from these pyramids. And you can still see that they still use the owl as like their main symbol because that is the go-to knowledge icon, or wisdom. And when you're in here, you have the dodos who come back as rails in here because that's probably the closest they're going to get to owls. And you do see that these ones have faces on their belly, which is a bit different from other rails, where they have that distinct, like, just straight fat bird style. And then there's also going to be bats, which makes sense because how long it's been since people have been in these temples. There's going to be bats just living and chilling out in the darkness from these hallways. Especially since the only light that's really showing up anywhere is from mushrooms, like the occasional glowing fungi, and from the lit up temple pieces from around the area. Head down here, and it's just kind of like a quick way back out into the entryway, because you just fall down that hole, and then you are right back outside. Just get a good little land up here. No, not this one. Because a good thing about these ziggurat almost type things is that you do get a pretty decent place to like kind of sit down and take a look at the ruins in this area. It's still hard to like see as far out because of all the trees, even though we are higher up and like in the trees than we were in Slitherbough. But because of like the sheer size, like you can't even really see the sky because of the intensity of these trees. Like, this is another reason why the settlements for those who followed the belief that the night was a sacred and revered realm, this is the perfect place for them because the light barely touches them past the trees. Alright. That is going to conclude our tour of the Rak'tika Greatwoods. Right with our little great serpent friend here. And hopefully you enjoyed. I am currently working on unlocking the Tempest, so that way I can set that up as the next tour. And then once I do that, I will be able to give the tour of the Tempest. But until then, hopefully I'll see you guys around, and hopefully you have a good day. Bye!